Hello, girls. Today we shall carry on with the syllabus for English of class 11, and today I shall teach you a very important and a beautiful poem of your syllabus, The Sick Rose. The title of the poem may sound a little strange to you or a very unusual title given to this poem. It may sound such to you, but today I shall tell you about why the rose is sick and how the rose became sick. But before we deal with the poem, I shall tell you, or I shall give you a brief account of the poem, one of the famous literary figures of English literature, William Blake. This is our poet, William Blake, and we shall know something about him now. Poet, painter, engraver, and visionary, William Blake worked to bring about a change both in the social order and in the minds of men. He is now considered one of the leading lights of English poetry, and his work has only grown in popularity. Blake always believed that his writings were of national importance. Far from being an isolated mystic, Blake lived and worked in the teeming metropolis of London at a time of great social and political change that profoundly influenced his writing. He is one of the great progenitors of English Romanticism, and his visual artwork is highly regarded around the world. Blake was born on November 28, 1757. He was born into a family of moderate means. Blake's childhood was pleasant and peaceful, more pleasant by skipping any formal schooling. Later, Blake's marriage to Catherine was close and devoted until his death. Blake taught her to write, and she helped him color his printed poems. While only a boy of 4, he spoke to his parents, and seeing angels playing amongst him, encountering visions of heaven and hell throughout London and the nearby countryside. In 1783, he published his first book of poems, Poetical Sketches. In 1789, Blake published Songs of Innocence and the Book of Thel. During the period 1790 to 1800, Blake completed iconic works like Songs of Experience, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, The Song of Loss, and many more. He died suddenly on August 12, 1827. In Blake's final years, poverty and despair, he completed 2 of his most famous and respected religious works, Jerusalem and Milton. So now, girls, this was the account, a brief account of the poet William Blake. I hope you have understood about him a little bit. And now we will move into the poem. So first I will give you an introductory note on the poem itself. The Sick Rose. The Sick Rose is a poem by William Blake. The poem mentions, through the symbols of the rose and the worm, how intense experience preys upon unpolluted innocence. The first publication was in 1794, when it was included in his collection titled Songs of Experience as the 39th plate. The poem is one of the most baffling and enigmatic in the English language, according to Nathan Servo. The rhyme scheme is ABCB. The stanzas are asymmetrical. Punctuation is also irregular. So now, this was the introductory note for this poem. Let us move on with the paraphrase of the poem now. So I would like you to sit with the book and learn whatever I teach now and try to understand the thoughts and feelings of the poet. Now girls, let us first discuss about the title of this poem. As I told you that this is an unusual title given to the poem by the poet, okay? Rose. Rose, as we know, is a beautiful flower, and rose in English literature stands for innocence, purity, okay? But the rose is sick. Let us find out how and why. A rose in this poem is seen to fall victim to the worm's dark secret love. Not much is learnt about the rose's sickness. The idea may be that love can have destructive consequences. The worm's love may be passionate, maybe, but it destroys the rose. That is the most significant aspect of this poem. A worm does not literally possess any love. The poet says it does not possess any love, but only lust and passion beyond limit. This is an example of personification, where human characteristics or emotions are attributed to non-human beings. Secret love is generally perverted. So now let me tell you what is personification, as the rose and the worm are personified here in this poem. So personification is a figure of speech in English language that makes an inanimate object look like human being, or an inanimate object or non-living object is given the characteristics or is attributed the characteristics of a living being, or so as to say a human being. Okay, so such is the matter in this poem. The rose and the worm both are personified in this poem. Okay, so now let us find out what is there in this poem. O rose, thou art sick. This is archaic English, thou art. Okay, these are the archaic words, old English words to mean. O rose, you are sick. The meaning of this line is like this. O rose, you are sick. The invisible worm that flies in the night, in the howling storm, has found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does thy life destroy. So girls, this is the poem, and you can see that this is a poem of only 8 lines. Okay, but you have a lot to learn out of these 8 lines. Let us find out what the poet wants to convey to us. This poem has a message for all of us girls. Rose is just a symbol of pure, innocent love, and worm is the symbol of not love but lust and passion, limitless passion. So the poet says, "O rose, you are sick." See, there are certain terms in this poem, those are very important. For example, rose is very important here. The invisible worm. Why the worm is called invisible? We will find it later on. Then comes the term howling storm. It is not only a calm and quiet storm, though storm is never quiet, never calm, but still the storm is howling, it is violent. And next comes the term crimson joy. Crimson joy. Joy, does joy has color? What do you think, girls? Happiness, joy, sorrow, grief. Do all these are abstract nouns, isn't it? So, abstract nouns, do they have color? Do they possess color? No, as far as we know. But here in this poem we find that yes, joy also has a color, and that is the color of red. Crimson, red color of joy is said in this poem. Then comes dark, secret love. How is the love? It is not pure, it is not innocent, it is not uncontaminated, but it is dark, it is not pure, it is secret, it is not open to all, it is not to be said to everybody. And then the rose is destroyed by the worm. Let us find out now. So while the rose exists as a beautiful natural object that has become infected by a worm, it also exists as a literary rose. Okay? The conventional symbol of love. As I told you just now, that love is always symbolized by a rose. And a red rose is obviously a symbol of love. The image of the worm resonates with the biblical serpent and also suggests a phallus. Now, what do we know about the biblical serpent, and why is it given over here? Why it is resonated in this poem? Now, what biblical serpent did? Let us find out that one. Okay, so girls, in the Bible we find that when Adam, you know perhaps that Adam and Eve were the first human beings on earth, created by the God himself. Okay, so when Adam and Eve were given birth on this earth in the Garden of Eden Garden, there they found a serpent on an apple tree. And Adam was very pure at heart, so was Eve. But seeing the ripe apples, Eve, the lady, wanted those apples to eat. Then Adam said, "You cannot have those apples because do not have greed in yourself. Greed is not good." So, but in this case, Eve wanted and demanded those apples. Then comes or enters the negative character, the devil, the serpent. The serpent symbolized greed. The serpent symbolized demands that are not logical, that are not basic needs of our life. And there, the human beings, the first human beings, committed a mistake. So, such is the character of the biblical serpent. The serpent that made Adam and Eve fall into fault, mistake, and blunder. And then after that, all the, diseases, all the negative aspects of human life came into being. So, we find the significant role of the serpent in the Bible. And the worm here also plays the role of a devil. I hope you have understood. Worms are said quintessentially earthbound and symbolize, I said, decay and death. That means destruction. The bed into which the worm creeps denotes both in the natural flower bed and also the lover's bed. The rose is sick, and the poem implies that love is sick as well. Why? Because love is indicated by rose. Yet the rose is unaware of its sickness. It does not know that it is sick. Of course, an actual rose could not know anything about its own condition, and so the emphasis falls on the allegorical suggestion that it is love that does not recognize its own ailing state. The rose is very pure, very innocent at heart. It does not know the evil intentions of the worm. So it does not know its own illness or sickness. This results partly from the insidious secrecy with which the worm performs its work of corruption. Not only is it invisible, it enters the bed at night because it has a dark intention. Its intention is not very pure, not very innocent. Its intention is to destroy the rose with his disguised love. This secrecy indeed constitutes part of the infection itself. And then comes the crimson joy. The crimson joy of the rose connotes both sexual pleasure and shame. Thus, joining the two concepts in a way that Blake thought was perverted and unhealthy for the rose. The rose's joyful attitude towards love is tainted, is contaminated by the aura of shame and secrecy that our culture attaches to love. So now this was the poem, girls. I hope you have understood well. The overall meaning of the poem is very much relevant to nowadays also, girls. We the girls are like the rose. Girls are innocent and they fall very easily a prey to the negative, devilish and bad intentions of the male sections of the society. So, we have to love somebody, we have to keep faith on them, everything is all right. But we have to be very much aware, like the rose was not. The rose was not aware of its sickness. But we have to be, the girls have to be very much aware what is what. They have to be aware of the fact that every love is not love. It may be lust. And they can fall a prey to the disguised love of someone else. So, I hope you have understood. And now, I shall give you some connotations of the different very important terms of this poem. So the first term that we will be dealing with now is rose. Why rose? Why didn't the poet choose any other poem, any other flower? Let us find out. The rose is a symbol of love, which is destroyed by selfishness, greed, and lust. A crimson rose has been entered, sickened, and destroyed by a worm. This destruction may symbolize the destruction caused by secrecy, deceit, hypocrisy, and pain. The rose is a symbol of purity, innocence, ignorance, and beauty. Number 2 is crimson joy. This expression refers to lustful passion. It suggests sexual pleasure. From another standpoint, crimson joy suggests ensuring beauty. While the crimson color soothes the eye of the viewer, the perception of the expression of joy satisfies the heart of an onlooker. Now the next term is howling storm. As I told you, the storm is never calm and quiet. But see the appropriateness of the term howling. It symbolizes a chaotic and beastly emotional crisis going on about him while he takes his dark flight. This is said about the worm. The words night, invisible worm, howling storm, destroy, all these words connote sexual relationship between a rose and a worm. In psychoanalytic criticism, the worm stands for phallic image. Number 4 is the worm. The worm stands for evil. It also connotes the idea of lust, sin, destruction, corruption, and decay and death. It is a mystery, so invisible. The rose, as I told you, is a symbol of purity, innocence, ignorance, and beauty, whereas the worm stands for corruption and contamination. And number 5 is dark, secret, love. This term is also very strange and unusual. Love, as we know, is never dark. It cannot be dark because love itself is a feature that God has given us. As God loves us, we also love one another. So how can love be dark? And how can love be secret? But still, we find that William Blake has used these two terms, dark and secret, and has attached these words to the word, godly word, love. So, dark and secret love, it refers to illegitimate love. Now you can well understand how love can be dark and secret. The love that is not legitimate, that is illegitimate. And it has to be, an illegitimate love has to be dark and secret. Love that corrupts the rose insidiously in the darkness of night. So, the dark and secret, these two words have been attached to the word love. So, all these words, all these terms are very much important for us girls in this topic, in this poem. I hope you have understood this poem well. And now I shall just give you the meanings of the line. O rose, you are sick. the invisible worm has flown in the night because it has very bad intention, and the worm is very much eager to contaminate or destroy the rose. So it has entered the rose's bed. That means a lover has entered the lover's bed with an evil intention, with the intention to destroy it, with an intention to destroy its purity, its innocence, its integrity, its beauty, and its ignorance, because it has a disguised love. He doesn't love the lover, but it has only a desire for lust. And then they found out the joy, the crimson joy, that is destructive. And the rose falls sick. The lover, the rose, becomes sick, and the dignity, the image, the integrity, the innocence, the purity of the rose and the lover has been destroyed forever with the dark and secret love of the worm, of the lover in himself. And the life is destroyed also. So this is the meaning, altogether meaning of the poem. I hope you have understood the poem well. Please go through this class once again so as to understand this beautiful poem. But still, this poem is a bit difficult. So please learn all the terminology that has been incorporated in this poem so as to understand and comprehend it in a very nice manner. That's all, and thank you.